One of the other complaints I heard people complain about this was that Tila had a shorter haircut and she had big arms. Here's the deal. The Olympics just got done. Did you see any of those athletic like rowers and shit like that? They have huge arms. That's because when you're strong, I mean, because no dudes look like He-Man either. Okay, this is
except for John Cena.
I mean,
except for John Cena, seriously.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, except for that. And so, but
Make
what
that
I'm
fucking
saying
movie.
is.
Welcome everyone to another episode of the world's greatest news and reviews.
Giving you opinions about nerd stuff is our superpower.
I'm Captain Mao.
And I'm Weapon 2, and just like a pickle soaks in brine, sit back and immerse yourself in episode 39.
Nice. Thank you for joining us on episode 39 of TWG Podcast. And if you look to my right, we have a special guest, sir. Greetings, welcome back. Introduce yourself to those who don't know you.
My name is H. Dresden, and I've been on this podcast before, but not for a long time. I'm looking forward to it. It's nice to be back.
A very, very long time since, the beginning of last year?
Yeah, I think so.
A pre-pandemic podcast.
Definitely way before the pandemic was my last time here, so.
That wasn't around Christmas time?
Probably.
Christmassy.
Well, the last podcast, but then you did come back for a Bloodshot, I believe, review.
I did.
Oh,
yes.
there was, yes.
True,
That was like a 40-minute long review,
Yep.
so it was like a little mini podcast.
Yep.
So, but awesome. Welcome back, sir. How have you been? What have you been up to?
I've been up to a lot. Moved. Got a few things going on with that. Just living life, you know how it is.
Nice.
Trying to stay caught up on pop culture stuff. You say that giving people nerd reviews is your superpower. I think keeping up on pop culture is your nerd review, because you guys watch a lot of stuff, and I'm always impressed by that.
Yeah, I'm always just like, hey, Tristan, have you seen this? She's like, no. I was like, cool. Have you seen this? No. What about this? I'm going to. He was like, that's cool. I don't know how we're friends, but Weapon 2, how the hell are you? How you been?
I'm doing pretty okay. I had some help the other day on my lake that I'm digging out in my yard, and that was
hole.
nice. Mm-hmm. Yes, I had two friends that are completely not associated with the two characters on here at all. They're not alter egos or anything. Come over and help me dig a hole. So that was nice.
That's really nice.
Further along, I'm getting close to being done.
Like they are caring, genuine, like good-looking friends. That
exactly
just
how I would describe them. Exactly, spot on.
They sound like a bunch of jerks to me. Just saying.
And it's all true.
Yeah.
But today we're going to give you our review of the Suicide Squad. We're going to give you our review of the Netflix original anime Masters of the Universe. And we're going to start by talking about something that's been out for a little bit, but we only kind of touched on a previous episode of the podcast. We're going to give you our review of Castlevania. Not just season 4, but kind of the series as a whole. So at the time season 4 wrapped, I was the only one who had finished it. So I just gave some quick overview thoughts without really completing it. Mr. Dresden, you are a big Castlevania fan, and actually the one who urged me to check out the series. So what did you think as a whole, and what do you think of season 4?
I think as a whole, it's absolutely fantastic. I think it's the best animation that Netflix has done to this point. I like that it paid some homage to the source material without necessarily needing to be bound by the source material. I thought that the characters were fantastically well fleshed out. I thought the dialogue was excellent. I liked pretty much everything about it.
Nice. Weapon 2, what did you think?
I liked it. I liked the story. To be honest, and I was a fan of it. I'll tell you, by the 4th season, for me, a lot of the battles and things just started all kind of blending together for me. It was like, oh, a whole horde of gray monsters and some purple monsters and some blue monsters in there, and some of them are brown. Oh, a yellow one! Look at, there's a yellow one. I haven't seen a yellow one for a while. So for me, it got kind of like that, because it was kind of like the same types of monsters over and over. Every time you saw one that was different or had like a special ability or something, you're like, oh yeah, that's pretty neat. It's different than all the rest of them. But as far as the story and the characters, I thought it was really cool. I did like the story. Just some of that stuff just seemed like it got repetitious to me. Mm-hmm. But other than that, it was good.
Yeah, I don't disagree. And I feel, a lot of people are kind of bummed out that season 4 is the final season. But it's doing a thing that I feel not a lot of shows do, and they go out like on a high note, go out on top. Kind of, it didn't get a chance to start to get overly repetitive and start to get boring and start to run out of ideas for the characters. Like, it ended really, really well. and it didn't overstay its welcome. Because I think the first season, it's only like 4 episodes long, so kind of like a little mini half season, a quick introduction, and the show really gets started at the very end scene of that first episode. Season 2 is amazing. Season 2 is kind of what I think the basis of most of the games are. These 3 characters going after Dracula, like going to kill him, going to, fight him in his castle and shit like that. Season 3 for me in terms of quality dips just a little bit. It's not quite as good as the first 2 seasons. It's still very, very good, very watchable. But it kind of feels, especially Alucard's story in that season, kind of feels like just this one-off
It's like an afterthought, kind of.
Yeah, and it feels like kind of the B plot of a season, and then once that wraps up, we're going to actually start finishing the main story arc, but that just happens to be the end of the season. Season 4 doesn't feel like that at all. Alucard actually has shit to do. Trevor and, what's his name? Sypha? Their relationship interaction is awesome. But to me, Season 4 is just a hair under Season 2 in terms of the second best season of the series. And I think the thing that makes Season 2 the best for me is the dynamic between Alucard and Trevor. Like, just hearing them talk shit to each other, hearing them joke around and all that is, like, what really makes that season for me. And spoiler alert, we're going to talk about some things that we really liked. So they're separated after Season 2.
Yep.
All of Season 3, Alucard's on his own. And they don't get all 3 of them back together until the very last episode of Season 4. And the whole time, like at some point they have to, they're going to work it in somehow. And as they're like building up to it, in my head, I'm like, please be as good as I want this to be. Please be as good as I see it.
Wasn't like Belmont and Cypher and whatever together?
So they were together the entire time.
Yep. And then who was Alucard with? Was he with
some villagers? And I forget the woman's name.
Kind of living in the castle or something.
Right. So he was helping them defend their village, and he brought them into the castle to seek refuge, and they were getting attacked by vampires and night creatures. Right. And as it was like right as Alucard is getting overwhelmed, Sypha and Trevor jump a portal and just freaking show up next to him, and you just see the fire.
Great. Portals are awesome.
Portals are cool.
And the whip and the smirk from Alucard, and it's just like,
just when I thought my night couldn't get any worse.
Trevor Belmont. And then the music hits, they jump, they give you the money shot of the 3 of them, and like quite literally, like like an amazing fight's about to follow. I rewound that and watched that like 6 times because I just wanted to keep living on that moment because it was better than I wanted it to be. So I know you're saying the fights got a little repetitive and all that, but this castle fight sequence I thought was one of the best in the series. Like, it was amazing. Did you still enjoy that? Were you still getting excited for that moment?
Yeah, I mean, I liked it when things got switched up enough that it wasn't just like a blending together horde of the monsters. Every time there was something, like I said, like a different type of a monster, or there was something, the regular normal human type characters were the most interesting because they had stories and personalities and stuff like that. Every once in a while there'd be a monster with a little bit of a personality, and the Sean Connery character, whoever from what, Highlander, that guy was a dirtbag. Yeah, he was an interesting character to throw in the mix. So
I think in a lot of ways, you can make a lot of the same kind of comments about Castlevania as you can about what we're going to talk about He-Man later on too. There is a very passionate fan base of these games that loves the games more than anything, and they know every single detail of every bit of lore, every bit of plot. And then there are people that just want to watch a fun show on television, right? And I think I probably fall somewhere in the middle of that. I did play the Castlevania games. I'm the right age to have played those, but I don't have the obscene level of attachment to it that some folks do, and there are a lot of complaints about the show. For example, like basically the whole plot of the video games is you fighting your way through Dracula's castle, and it's more and more interesting as you go along, and it's really neat. It's a fun part of the game, especially as the games move along and the graphics get better and stuff like that. But then, the point is made, particularly in Season 2, when there's that great fight scene to the orchestral Bloody Tears song and everything. Like, they just get there and they're in the castle, and then there's no real progression through the castle, and you don't get to see all the cool things that should be part of the castle. And, to be fair, the show is called Castlevania. So, people make a point about that. But to me, it's like, you can't have both. You can't have something that is rigorously adhering to source material and still viable now. And I think that's going to apply for He-Man, too. Because, you can't watch a video game in a movie form. When they try that, it doesn't come out very well. Right. So I think they did a good job kind of steering away from canon enough that you can make an interesting story while still doing enough, homage to it to make it still a Castlevania movie.
So great point, and that's kind of leading me into a question I was going to ask both of you. And okay, so this is a video game adaptation. Not a great track record. Most things in terms of in terms of adapting a video game into a series or a movie. This is one of the few, I think we could agree, like criticisms aside, very well done, right? Very well done properties.
Right. It had a really good story. It was interesting. A lot of other things kind of fall flat. So
but why is that? Why is this good? And there's a couple of other examples out there. But why do most video game properties fail in that transition?
Because they don't focus enough on the plot and the writing and the storytelling. They just say, hey, let's just try to make this let's just do enough of a story to get us through this thing and make it like a video game, rather than saying, let's make a really interesting story that people will think is cool and characters that people will get invested in, and that will make a good movie. You know, I mean, we can talk about Mortal Kombat and stuff like that, which is just, hey, let's stack all our money on the bet that people who like Mortal Kombat are going to come and see this, and then we're just going to whatever. Let's just throw something down on a piece of paper and get through it. You know, that's what it feels like sometimes with those. So
true. Dresden?
I think I completely agree with everything Weapon 2 says. I think that in general, video games are designed to be interacted with, right? I mean, you play the video game, you interact with it, you are the main character. So that you don't have to do as much work with the plot, you don't have to do as much work with the characters, because you're immersing yourself automatically, unless the game sucks, right? I mean,
because you become a character and a part of it,
exactly.
An active participant, which you're not when you're watching it.
Exactly. You know. So when you remove that element, I think a lot of these like video game movies, like their plots just don't stand up under their own weight, you know, and the characters don't stand up under their own weight because it's not as engrossing, because you're not involved, you know, in the way you would be with it, especially like a first person video game. So I really think that this does a good job in that it makes it interesting enough, because it does those things Scott talks about. It develops the plot, it develops the characters, it works with the writing, it's well done, and it still incorporates enough to make it Castlevania, because you could go the other direction too, you know, and make a good show that really isn't Castlevania anymore. So I think people do complain about that somewhat with this, but I think it hits that sweet spot for me.
I mean, because when you're playing a video game, you're actually doing an activity. It's a task. You're a participant, and it's like anything else, putting a puzzle together or anything else. You're involved because you're immersed in doing a thing. It's like you're not going to make a movie of watching people play chess. If you're playing chess, it's awesome. It's very interesting. You're strategizing. You're involved in it. You're thinking, but people sitting there watching a movie about people playing chess wouldn't be very interesting.
Right.
So
that said, Queen's Gambit's pretty good.
No, it is, but it's not just. It's not
exactly.
It's not just about the chess game. It's about they've made an interesting movie about characters that bring you in and a plot that's very interesting, which is what we're saying the other video game things don't
I think both of you guys hit the nail on the head, and this is why I like doing a podcast with smart people, because I was going to say exactly what you guys were, and you both just like beat me to it. I was like, all right, well, I'll just sit here and smile and nod. But that's exactly what it is. Video games are interactive. You feel attached because you are playing the main character, right? And I think most video games, there are some exceptions, but if you take out that level of interactivity, the story that's being told is usually pretty thin. Like, how often do you just sit and watch all the cutscenes in a video game? You know what I mean? For like the hour, 2 hours, whatever it is. So Castlevania, I think what the show did is, you're right, there's still enough of it there to be Castlevania. But lots of times that series slows way down, and all of a sudden we're just having like long bits of dialogue between characters. Right. We're having lots of character development happen. We're giving a shit. Like, to me, Trevor, Alucard, and Sypha are like some of my favorite characters in anything ever, especially Trevor there at the end, and Alucard, like, love him. But like, if you give a shit and you expand the world and like you enhance things, then when we do get the big epic amazing fights, which this show does do better than most things, you're invested and you're in it.
I mean, that's like the magic. If you can sit there and watch a whole bunch of dialogue between two characters and you're interested and involved and think it's cool, you've cracked the code right there. If you're just watching a bunch of people talking, this is stupid, I'm just going to play with my phone, then then you're not succeeding. So.
Well, and even like the scenes in season 3 when Alucard's by himself and he's like, I think I'm losing my mind, talking to the he's just talking to himself, and you're like, this is the best thing ever. Like, oh my god. So that's where I think it succeeds.
Agreed. And I think, for those folks that do complain about, some of the things they would have liked to have seen, like more of the castle, more of the sort of fighting your way through to Dracula, that sort of thing. I think it's like you only have a certain amount of money to spend here, right? And money being like sort of a metaphor, and you can either spend them on world building, dialogue, characters, which I feel like, this is what this show does pretty well, or you can make it just a rehash of the video game, in which case you're going to really appeal to your core, but then you're not going to draw anybody else in. So I think it's that they made the right choice from my perspective, but I'm also not a rabid Castlevania guy.
Well, and also to continue with the point of the interactivity, how long would that have been entertaining for? Like 3 episodes, 4 episodes, where you're just going through the castle over and over and over again and seeing crazier shit.
Yeah,
like, it's essentially just going to be a big action set piece, and that's going to you're going to get numb to it after a minute. So
it's a video game you're not playing.
Yeah,
basically, right? It's like watching somebody else play a video game.
But that said, I can't emphasize this enough. This is one of the best animated shows on Netflix, if not the best. I mean, I haven't watched all of them, obviously, but I can't recommend this enough. And this is from somebody who didn't play any of the games, who had no real understanding of what the lore was or who the characters were. I knew Dracula was in it. That was about it. This quickly became one of my favorite things, like a thing that I could just put on and watch over and over and over and over again. Like, it's so freaking good. I can't recommend it enough.
I recommend it also. I think it was good. I enjoyed it.
Agreed. I also strongly recommend this, and I do think it's like a notch above the rest of the Netflix stuff. Like even like Blood of Zeus, which was really good, I thought, is maybe like half a step below this. And then some of the other Netflix stuff I think is like way less good than this. Like Record of Ragnarok, for example. I started to watch that and I just couldn't get into it. It was too anime for me. But I just don't think it's of the quality that this is. I think this is just exceptionally well done.
Yeah, I watched Blood of Zeus before watching this, and I remember like loving it and reading like IGN reviews saying that it's like Castlevania light, or like this will hold you over until the last season of Castlevania, but it's just not as good. And I was like, how dare you? Like, this is amazing. And then I watched Castlevania and I was like, that's fair. So watch Castlevania. That's the moral of this story.
Yes.
All right, so let's talk about the Suicide Squad. I feel like a lot could be said about this. So, Mr. Dresden, you watched this very recently.
I did, yes.
What did you think?
Well, I went into it with a very low set of expectations based on the way the other DC movies have turned out, you know, with the exception of the first Wonder Woman movie, which I thought was exceptional. I really haven't thought very much of them overall. And so I went into this expecting kind of more of the same. And I think it benefited from that in my estimation, because while I don't think it was a great movie by any stretch of the imagination, it was better than I expected, and so I had a positive experience. That's like kind of my broad spectrum picture on what I think of it.
Nice.
I went in with low expectations, and I was positively surprised.
All right. Weapon 2?
Well, I went in with low expectations as well, because when you give me a list of characters like Polka Dot Man, Starro, and Peacemaker, I'm like, I don't know about this. How are you going to make these retro, old-timey, dumb characters kind of cool and interesting to me? So, for me, it was what I expected and better than I expected in 2 different ways. I had low expectations with the movie. So as far as it being entertaining and me liking it, it way exceeded that for me, because I didn't think I was gonna maybe like it that much. Now, as far, what was the other thing I was gonna say? I mean, as far as it making so it was what I expected, in that I thought regardless, it was just going to be, even if they did it right and interesting and I enjoyed it, it was going to be just kind of dumb in a good way. In fact, it's just simple. A simple movie about characters just running around, doing things until the end. And if they throw in some funny lines and I give a crap about the characters and they make me laugh a little bit, and I think they do a good job with them, that's icing on the cake for me. So I think that all that they succeeded with. So they made these characters that I thought were going to be not that interesting and maybe dumb. They made them way more interesting, and I liked them way more than I thought I was going to. And as far as it being what I expected it to be, it was. I mean, there's nothing about this that's super complex and gonna make it Oscar winning or anything. I'm just saying it's a simple movie that I thought was funny. I liked the characters more than I thought I was going to, And I think they did as good a job with the characters they picked. I think they did. It was genius how they made them interesting in the way they portrayed them on there. So that's kind of my feelings towards it.
Nice. Yeah. So here's a sentence I genuinely never thought would come out of my mouth. Polka Dot Man was one of the best parts of that fucking movie. Like, he was amazing. So I agree with both of you, actually, in that I also went in with low expectations. And I hold with the last Suicide Squad. We all know the story with that movie, and we know that is essentially two movies like Frankenstein together. And you could tell that there's a movie there somewhere, because there are genuinely good scenes and genuinely good moments that just completely don't matter, like, immediately following it, right? This, at the very least, is actually a freaking movie. There's actually a narrative. There's actually a plot. There's actually, like, character development, all this kind of stuff that happens. There's actually character moments. Like, all the character moments in the first movie is shoved into that bar scene fucking out of nowhere going into the third act, and it doesn't make any sense. This, from the moment the movie starts, we get to see the characters interacting and them kind of starting to bond with each other and forming friendships and, you know, starting to rely on each other. So it never gets to the point where, like, if Dom shows up and they're like, this is my family, like, I wouldn't buy that. But they also never do that, like in the first movie, where all of a sudden Diablo's like, oh, this is my family. And you're like, is it though? But that said, this concept, this movie specifically, is batshit insane. And it leans into that because it never really takes itself too seriously. And you get a good, talented director who leans into the batshit insanity of it. And if you just make the characters interesting and funny and, like, make them crack jokes and give me over-the-top ridiculous violence, because this is a hard R, which this property should be, then all of a sudden I'm entertained. And all this movie needs to do is entertain me. It doesn't need to try to be anything bigger, anything better. It just needs to be entertaining, make me laugh, and promise on the... like, deliver on the promise of being batshit insane. And that's what this does. And then if you have a couple standouts, like Margot Robbie playing Harley Quinn, who has clearly perfected the role by this point, and everything from just maintaining the accent in the entire movie this time, doing great action sequences, looking, like, especially the opening sequence, her costume looking right out of, like, I think that was the Arkham video game. Like, she looks amazing. Bloodshot was fucking really good, or Bloodsport, excuse me. Yeah. He was great. Even though he was almost the exact same character as Will Smith's Deadshot. Oh, right. So confusing. But then they make fun of that. Like, they're self-aware of that fact, because then they introduce Peacemaker, and they have their little one-up, like, quipping matches with each other. Right. I hit my targets in the center. I hit mine more in the center. Like, all that shit worked for me. That was super
Peacemaker's
fun.
Arm veins were its own character of the Suicide Squad. That one squiggly little one on his right arm, that was something else, man.
Yeah, John Cena's not a real person. Like, I don't know what the hell. Like, everybody talks about The Rock being jacked as hell. Like, John Cena's like, Jesus, he's ridiculous. But again, like, in an interview, like, I saw him talking about it, and he was just like, how do you want me to play this character? And they're like, douchey Captain America. He's like, okay, got it, and nailed it. Like, holy crap. I just love peace, and I will kill as many men, women, and children as it takes to get peace. Men, women, and children. Yeah. So again, that's like, it made me laugh. It was fun, but you guys are both right in that, like, it's not anything super crazy. It's not gonna win any awards. And you were even saying, like, some of the deaths didn't really appeal to you, right?
Yeah, I have a problem with the overall tone of the movie, I feel like. So obviously, the huge complaint about the first Suicide Squad movie was these sort of disparate tones that existed. At one moment, it seemed almost like a campy Marvel funny kind of thing was going on, and then the next moment, like, you know, somebody's head is exploding or something. It's very, you know, tonal shifts happen really quickly. And I feel like that you can make that complaint about this movie a little bit too. And it's not so much the tone that shifted, it's like, how serious am I supposed to be taking this? How seriously am I supposed to be taking this? Because there are moments where I think there's that one conversation between Bloodsport and somebody, and again, the forgettable nature of the characters, I really don't care about them enough to remember, and it was like, okay, this is supposed to be serious now, and I'm supposed to take this seriously, and this is supposed to be serious character development, and I'm bored to tears right now. Like, I just don't want to watch this anymore. And then the scene would change, and then it's more goofy hijinks, and we're off to the races, which is good. And then, like, for example, you said Polka Dot Man was your favorite character. I agree. I think that the way they developed him was really interesting, except that I think they played him for laughs more than they needed to. And his death, it was just like they played his death for laughs. Mm-hmm. Like, we have this character which maybe even has a little bit of gravitas in the way that he looks at the world, and, you know, we know he's like huge mother issues and all that kind of stuff. And then, like, he just gets squashed, and it's like, he's dead. Like, to me, it just seemed like, am I supposed to care about these characters or not? Like, right. Like, James Gunn, pick a side.
Like when he's in the club and he's dancing surrounded by women women with his mother's head on them.
Yeah.
There's some psychology
There's so much. Well,
and he's really enjoying himself.
Well, the two moments that got me with him is when they're first sitting in like the debriefing and Bloodsport, looks at him and he's like, we're all gonna die, and he's like, I hope so.
Yeah.
And you're just like,
Throughout the
what?
whole thing. Yeah, he's on board. That's cool.
And he's like, I pictured that they were my mother and killed them, and I'm just like, oh my god, I love everything about you. Like more.
I feel like it was his ideal moment when he got to finally be a superhero, and he goes, I'm a superhero, and he's killed.
Yeah,
he's
exactly.
like, hey, it's the best thing
fair.
that could ever happen.
You peaked. Like, you're going out on top. Your life was not going to get better after that moment.
Yeah. And he's always seems like he might want to die. So yeah, so that's a good way. That's a good way to go.
I also do like Amanda Waller in this movie better because like she has that stoic, just like not gonna give an inch, just like I'm gonna get asked a stupid question and just like stare through you because I want to light your soul on fire. That works better in this because the characters are a little bit more, wacky, for lack of a better term. You know what I mean?
Love
So
it when she started nutting out and losing it because nobody would follow her directives.
Yeah.
She just like, she's getting ready to blow them all up. Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, that was funny.
So all of that worked for me. And like Bloodsport and his conversation with his daughter, you think's gonna go like Will Smith's did, and then all of a sudden they're like screaming at each other through the glass. Like, that was fucking hilarious. So there's lots of really, really funny moments in this movie. And again, I think if you're not expecting the world, that's kind of the key here. Like, have reasonable expectations. And again, if this were the first movie, if this is what was presented to us out of the gates, I think we'd all be on board with it, and we'd all be like, well, that was fun and kind of exactly what I expected. And then we'd be looking forward to sequels and stuff. Like, from this movie, if they gave me another one, I'd be happy. Also, they killed Rick Flag. What the fuck? Like, I was genuinely shocked at that moment. I didn't think he was going to die.
That was surprising.
Who are the villains, or who are the villains of the Suicide Squad?
What do you mean? Like, who are the antagonists in this particular movie? You're saying in the comics?
No, I'm saying right now in this movie that we just watched,
Right.
which is the Suicide Squad.
Right.
Who are the villains in this movie?
The giant starfish.
I mean, you could say Starro the Conqueror, but he was just happy floating around in space and then got
He was
experimented
not.
on.
He was not. He was not a villain in this. I'm going to tell you who I think, and you guys. I want to hear what you guys think first. I think that the villains in this are number one, Waller.
Yeah.
Number two, NASA. number and the government. Number three, maybe Peacemaker towards the end.
Right.
As a tool of the government.
Right.
But Starro, I was happy. Floating, looking at the stars, minding his own business, floating outer space, gets abducted by NASA, who take him prisoner. They turn him over to the rest of the government, where they, for all these years, they use him as a tool and imprison him until, of course, he breaks out. And then, he's like, I'm going to give you a little bit of, I'm gonna give you the business a little bit. But that dude was minding his own business. He didn't come to this earth as a villain trying to take over this planet. He was brought here against his will. That's why I think that Starro was not a villain.
Well, yeah, he's not wrong. Like,
right. But he is, though. I mean, like, Zemo had a lot of bad things done to him, right? And he was still the villain of that. Even though, because, I mean, when you decide to, drop it, do the things he decides to do, like, you're a bad guy no matter what happened to get you there. Like, Starro could have taken 20 people prisoner and said, I can take over this entire world unless you return me to space right now. He didn't do that, though. He decided he's going to take over the entire world, which I see his point.
I was like, 30 years is a long time to be tortured. Like, you're going to be a little mad.
But who knows? I mean, who knows how long he lives? For him, that could have been like 2 minutes. It could.
But here's the deal. At that point, he's a kaiju. Is Godzilla bad? Now we got to go.
Shit.
Now we got, is Galactus bad? He's hungry. He's just eating planets. Guy's got to eat. So all I'm saying is, I think when he's a kaiju, he's like, I'm gonna just do some stuff right now. But he wasn't mind. He was minding his own business out in space. That's all I'm saying. I'm saying, if you're minding your own business, John, you're minding your own business, just you and John
Who's
stuff.
John? Who's John?
What's that? Oh, excuse me. H. Dresden. H. Dresden is just minding his business, doing H. Dresden stuff.
Right.
And a van pulls up. They grab him. They take him away. They start doing crazy experiments on him. He starts turning into a huge monster. Okay, I'm adding this. And so he becomes this huge, enormous kaiju-sized monster. For decades and decades, they do painful experimentation on him. They make him torture and do bad things with his powers that he's accumulated during this time. on other people, and when he breaks out, he just decides, I'm going to do a little damage. Is H. Dresden a villain in that thing? I think not.
Well, but then in this scenario, H. Dresden is now murdering innocent people who had nothing to do with his abduction, nothing to do with the torture. Like, if you want to wipe out all of NASA or all the people who imprisoned you,
go take out the Pentagon.
Sure.
Absolutely,
Like,
I'm on board with that.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that makes sense to me. But like, these are average people walking down the street minding their own business, and you're just gonna take them over with a facial parasite that's going to kill them.
But okay, but the thing that we're kind of negating.
Do we know did the facial parasite kill them all?
It said that.
It said that their corpses.
Yep.
Under
okay.
It, yeah.
Yep. As soon as it happens, yeah, it's very much.
Well, the thing that we're not.
So he was just a step further than Scarlet Witch. I hear you.
Okay, and you can make the argument Scarlet Witch is the villain in that entire
Right, no,
series.
I agree. I've
she
already
gets a
made
redemption
that.
arc. Though.
She does.
Starro the Conqueror does not get a redemption arc.
But also, like, what is Starro's perception of us? Like, again, if we chop down a tree to make paper, furniture, whatever it's going to be, and we kill the squirrel that lives in it, it's not because we're malicious and we hate the squirrel. We're just like, oh, well, like, you're not that important to it. Would he view us like that? Would he view us as a sentient, intelligent species and not mess with us? Like, we don't know what his perception is. If he could live possibly hundreds of years, maybe he was only an adolescent, even at kaiju size. Like, we don't know anything about.
He's probably just a little upset. There's a little bit of retribution here. I think that he's probably just trying to take over the planet, of course, but then at that point he doesn't see us the same as equals, or I mean we're like maybe ants.
Dude,
at
but
that point.
being upset and wanting retribution is like the character arc of every villain in every single DC property and every Marvel property. Like, I'll show them. Like, I mean, like, that's like,
I hear you. Some of them are right. I hear you.
Well, here's my thing. Yeah. So, like, at the end, the Suicide Squad's supposed to just leave as Starro's wrecking shit, and there's this big hero moment where, like, no, we can't let the world get taken over. We have to turn around and stop this, despite the fact that our heads might explode. And I'm just like, yeah, except that there's a Justice League in this world. Like, where the fuck's Superman? Like, he'd handle Starro in a
obviously
he'd
not
be there
helping
in 5 minutes.
But they're not helping. They're not there.
Well, because, like,
That's
just
a good
is happening.
question.
But, like, anybody, like, seriously, like, the Flash could go just run through his face and be done. Like,
and they never showed up. That's a good question, and they never showed up during this.
And again, like, this is all happening under, like, 10 minutes.
Sure.
So, Justice League gets notified. I don't know what the hell they're doing. Maybe they're in space, But it's like, it's not Suicide Squad stops him or the world ends. Like, there's other people that can stop him.
For sure. Definitely.
Right.
So.
Right.
But I do think that makes What's-Her-Face the villain even more, though, because, if you run away from battle, you get your head blown up by her, right? Or if you run towards battle when she doesn't want you to, you get your head blown up by her. So it's obviously about power and control for her, right? And her
she's
own.
Like blowing up heads, bro.
I mean, whatever. Everybody needs a hobby, I guess. But yeah, I would argue that she's probably as much the villain as Starro is. But yeah, Starro is just like a force of nature that gets turned loose.
I'm glad she got the beat down.
Me too. She had that coming, definitely.
By the one with the crutches.
Yep.
Nice. All right, so would you guys recommend? Would you say people should go out of their way to watch this?
I think if you want just an entertainment, a movie surely just entertaining that might have some funny moments that you laugh at and see a bunch of funny retro obscure characters that you never thought would be as interesting as they are in this movie from old comic books, I'd watch it.
I agree. I think that they make as much hay as possible with what they have. I mean, they have some like C-list characters at best, and it is an entertaining movie. It's fun. You sit down, you'll laugh, you'll have a good time. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't spend a lot of money to go see it. But yeah, I would watch it. On Disney Plus, for example.
Yeah, I'd say definitely watch it. I think it's worth your time. I think it justifies 2 hours, whatever the runtime is. And again, don't expect the world. It's just a lot of fun. I think you'll have a good time mostly if you go in there with reasonable expectations. Also, Taika Waititi's little cameo was unexpected and quite good. He had that touching moment in there with his daughter. And I had one other point to make, and I'm totally going to draw a blank. It's fine. I could edit it in later.
I think he was Ratcatcher too. I think he was Ratcatcher from the comic books.
Yep. We should just have Taika Waititi be in everything. Like,
for real. Yeah.
Exactly. Like obligatory 5 minutes.
I still want him to do Gorilla Man and the Human Robot.
Well,
yeah, Gorilla Man would be awesome. He would totally rock that.
And so this won't be like a review or anything, but I just saw Free Guy, and he's in that, and he's amazing in that. Like, seriously, he's so freaking funny.
He's good in everything.
He's very good in everything.
It's obscenely talented.
He's like Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah, he was also in Free Guy. Spoiler alert. All right, so let's talk about a little show called Masters of the Universe Revelations.
Yes.
Okay, so this is getting a fair amount of kind of flack or pushback on the internets because of some of the creative choices in this show. So I'm going to go real quick because I feel like you guys are going to have a lot more to say about it than I am.
Okay.
I'm not a gigantic He-Man fan. This is one of those things that was...
Are you a regular size He-Man fan?
I'd say I'm a miniature He-Man fan.
Okay, gotcha.
Cool.
With
Like
the
action hero size?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like I'm a 6-inch to scale figure.
Okay. Fair enough.
Maybe a little bit bigger than that. So my point is, like, this is kind of a property that is like just before my generation type thing. Like my older brother, friends that I have that are a little bit older than me are so into this, and I get it. It's their, you know, Power Rangers. It's their Transformers. It's whatever, like, insert ridiculous fucking concept. If you miss it by a year, it's not your thing, right? And so this was just before my time. But I do remember watching it via reruns. I do remember having toys. Like I had a freaking Grayskull playset. And I remember really, really loving the Masters of the Universe movie with Dolph Lundgren, despite the fact that it's probably one of the worst things ever made. I haven't seen it recently. Don't ruin it for me. I will never watch it again because in my head, magic. So, point being, I was genuinely interested, and I watched the first episode, didn't watch anything else, and then binged it all last night because in preparation for this review. Now, I liked it. I thought it was cool. I thoroughly actually enjoyed it. And I like that it's not just a rehash of the original series. It seems to be a sequel. This is a batshit crazy, like, world and universe. Like, the way they mix, like, technology and, like, old-timey medieval, like, weapons and all that. And the characters are fucking ridiculous. But to me, it works. And it was fun. And the storyline that I'll let you guys get in depth with when you guys talk about why people are not liking this so much. The choices that they made and what they did with the characters, I feel, worked for this story that they were telling. And it didn't bother me because I'm not precious with the source material. But I feel like if I was precious with the source material, I would take umbrage. So, like, I can kind of get it, but also I think that's silly because it can't just be the same thing. So, that said, I liked it. I thought it was a good anime. I thought the animation was, like, simultaneously well done, but also looking retro. I thought some of the flashbacks they did were, like, so cheesy and self-aware. Like, oh my God, he actually said that? Like, what the fuck? So I think it was a good show. I liked it. I don't really get why people are so mad about it. But Weapon 2, what did you think? And kind of explain why people are a little pissed about this.
Well, first off, I'm not super... I was in high school about the time when this came out on TV, so the original. So I'm not a super invested He-Man and the Masters of the Universe fan. I'm going to put that as a disclosure. So to me, there's not, like, super strong feelings any one way or the other about it. I watched it. I agree with the things that you said about the animation and all the things about the show. I think that there's reasons that people have backlash, and I think one of the reasons is people get some people, I'm not going to say everybody, some people who are fans and have, like, this nostalgia and all this kind of retro feelings about something. Some people are cool with things changing and a different direction in the story, and some people want it always to stay the same. To me, I don't understand any of those people. I don't even understand anything that I'm super attached to that I want to always just be the same. Every time I watch it, it's just replaying the same thing. I never want to see that. Apparently, some people, that's all they want. They want the same silliness, which is, I mean, if you go back, it's like, I have the same things where I think I have fond feelings about something, but I go back and look at it and I go, if I was watching this now, I would think it's just dumb as hell. Okay.
Power Rangers for me.
And I think that a lot of people, if they were honest with themselves, they would agree that this is a ridiculous show. And I should want to see some type of of the way this furthers and grows a little bit. And so I think the biggest backlash, other than that type of stuff where some people just want nothing to ever change and stay the same, I think there was some mishandling in that. Another disclosure, I'm a Kevin Smith fan, and I like a lot of things that Kevin Smith does, and I'm always going to be a fan of stuff that Kevin Smith does. And I
Snoogans.
Yes, and I think that his heart is always in the right place. He always wants to do what's best for a nerd topic because he's invested in that stuff and he likes that stuff. Now, I think there was a PR snafu in this thing where there was some YouTube channel clown something. I can't remember who they are. Forgive me if I got the thing wrong. I'm not trying to disrespect you, but I can't remember the exact name. They had put out a thing where they had some leaks that He-Man was going to step aside and that Teela was going to take over and the show was going to be all about her, and that He-Man wasn't going to be in it that much. And I think they got some defensive-ness from Kevin Smith, where he basically wanted to call them liars and say that they were wrong, when some of in a lot of ways they were kind of right. They wanted to get into a semantics, an exact words and semantics type battle, rather than just saying, I think that it would have been better if he came out and said, hey, some of what you're saying is possibly, to some degree, right or wrong. Never not come out and say, call people liars and say they're wrong, but it's important for the story and the story you want to tell and something like that. I think that would have done a lot to do some damage control for this if that was the approach. And I think that just some people are there's two realities. There's a reality that maybe some things are changing in a way just to meet some type of social justice thing. And there's also the reality that some things change in different ways and that direction just because it's good storytelling, and that's just the way the world's going. So it doesn't always have to be some part of a forced agenda. Sometimes it's just the reality of the way we're trying to make everything inclusive for people, no matter what it is, not in a forced way, not in a we have to do this to accommodate something way, but just this is just the way the world is, and this is what makes an interesting story for more than just a small section of people. So I think that's important. I think that some of that people get their feelings hurt because they think that some things being done rather than it's just a different story. Maybe it's a different story than you would have wanted. Maybe it's a different story than you expected. But it's still Masters of the Universe. He-Man's still in it. We're told that in the second part of this, the second season, that he's going to be back big time. So I think that people overreact. And I'll tell you what I also think. I also think there's people who didn't watch any of this, who just heard reports and somebody told them something, and they're outraged over that. If you haven't watched it, you don't have the right to complain about anything. If you watch it and you say, I didn't like it and I think this has happened, well, at least you put in the time to watch it, and now you can have a conversation with people about something you saw. That's all I have to say about it.
All right, so real quick before I throw it to you, Dresden. So I agree with a lot of what you said, and I feel like for me, not knowing anything about it beforehand, spoilers, when He-Man dies in the first episode, it was like a holy shit moment to me. I was like, oh, what? Like this, because the entire episode felt like a finale. And then it just happens. And you're like, what
he dies?
Yeah, spoilers. So,
wait, spoiler alert.
But then, the next few episodes where it's like getting all the band back together, seeing everything they did after all that was really well done. Also, voice cast, fucking amazing. And you're right. So, like, we're in an age now where, like, we try to want to give representation to more than just straight white males. And, like, that's okay. Like, it's all right. It's fine. And yeah,
there's still plenty of representation
out there
for straight white males. Okay, it's going to be all right.
And so, like, Teela, who is like a cool character, and like I don't remember her at all from the old show or anything like that, was like badass in this show. She like legitimately can carry the show on her own, and it didn't feel forced. It didn't feel contrived. It felt like just this is just the progression of the way this particular story is going. Also, He-Man's still in every fucking episode, whether that's a flashback or whether he shows up at the end in heaven, and then all like he's still there. It's not like he's just blinked out of existence. And so I feel like even if you watch, I do agree with you that if you haven't seen this, you kind of have no right to complain. I feel that about anything. But if you have watched this and you do feel a certain way about it, I ask you, do you hate it because you feel like the story doesn't work and because it wasn't interesting and because it was poorly written and it failed as a show? Or do you hate it because it changed something that you're nostalgic for and you didn't want your source material changed? In which case I'll say it's not a reboot, it's a sequel. They didn't change your old show. Your old show's still there. So, yeah. Anyway, Dresden, what do you think?
I agree with everything you guys said initially, for sure. I think there's a couple different things that you could conceivably complain about. Okay. So the first is obviously the major plot shift of taking the focus off He-Man and making it about Tila. And you can think whatever you want to think about that, and that's fine. But to me, that makes a lot of sense for a lot of reasons. So like if we take a look at Marvel for a second, right? Look at the Hulk. Okay. The Hulk is, they still have not figured out how to make a Hulk movie with just the Hulk that works really well. And like, there are good parts about all the Hulk movies that there are, but in general, a lot of people think they're, given the strength of that intellectual property, they're the weakest movies in the whole franchise, right? He-Man's basically the Hulk, right? He's a weak little character that runs around until he becomes super strong, and then nothing can stand against him, basically. And then he's completely overpowered. And so in almost every Marvel movie we've seen, they have to basically figure out a way to handle the Hulk, right? Unless Thanos is around to stomp him, and there is not a Thanos in the He-Man universe. That's parallel.
But he also doesn't have anything really intellectual or significant to say either, just like the Hulk.
Exactly. That's exactly it. And like, I mean, I think they do a really good job showing that with the flashbacks.
Yes.
And I mean, it makes
really
sense.
said that?
He's a 16-year-old boy that like turns into a magic monster man with a magical sword. Like he's gonna say cheesy stuff and do cheesy things. And if you want to watch a full season of that, like we don't have a lot to talk about. You know what I mean? Like it's gonna be really boring really quickly, I think. So I think in that regard, it makes sense to take the focus off of him because the other characters, number one, you didn't even remember Tila from the show, right? And she's a cool character, so like give her some screen time, number one. And number two, just you can't have a show that goes on that long with that kind of tone where it's a villain of the week every week, and it's Skeletor makes the point in the show. One of the quotes I like the most, he's like, when He-Man runs him through in the first episode and basically looks like he kills him with the sword of eternity, and Skeletor's like, finally you use the sword for what it's supposed to be used for. And we had how many seasons of a cartoon where He-Man runs around with a sword the entire time, never cuts anybody with it, never stabs anybody with it. Like that doesn't work now. That's not going to work. We want something darker, grittier, and Kevin Smith said that's what it's going to be. And I think it's hard to accomplish that with He-Man in the picture all the time because he is this sort of paragon of silly 16-year-old boy virtue. So yeah, I think moving him out of the central focus was really good. I like that they did that. And to me, like the whole thing, you can sum it up in is like the character of Orko. I think he basically sums up the difference between this show and the last show. He was super annoying comic relief, made basically specifically to sell toys, just like every other merchandising thing. First of all, the whole show He-Man was just designed to sell toys. The toys came out first, then they made the show to sell the toys.
It's just a toy commercial.
It's basically a long toy commercial, right? And Orko was probably the worst part of that. Like, he's got his one shtick that he does. He always tries to do spells and they never work out. And there's always some comedic side effect that happens and we all laugh and then that part of the show is over. And that's horrendous, right? And so to have that character in a series now work, you have to change the way he does business. So this show does that. It changes almost everything about him while keeping his character the same, right? And he goes out hardcore. Like one of the coolest, first of all, H. Dresden fan, right? Defendarius, right? With the big green thing when he's black and glow skull. Like that was amazing. And like all of a sudden a character that never had any depth or nuance or anything is now like the coolest thing in the show. And when he dies, it's like, oh my God, I can't believe they killed him. He was so cool.
Well, even before that, the conversation he had with Lena Headey's character, I can't remember her name. Like all of a sudden there's this massive character development. Like I remember like I looked up and I was like, whoa, what the fuck's happening right now? Like what is this show? When they're talking about his origin, like what he's destined to do and all, I was just like, holy shit, like look at this little guy.
And like now that the magic is gone, like the consequences for him, like he is, I think, probably the best used character in the show in terms of illustrating the difference between what the old show was and what the new show is. And like all those, like the people you're talking about that like they just want their canon to stay the same and they can't deal with it. First of all, Victor, you're right. It didn't change. It just evolved to the next step because it's a sequel. And number two, take 10 minutes, go sit down and watch that show on YouTube. Watch the original.
Be honest with yourself,
and
though.
Be honest with yourself. Could you watch that at 38, 43, however old you were, if you were like big into that show when you were a kid? Could you watch that? And if you can, again, go watch something else.
Because again, so my parallel is I love the fucking Power Rangers, right? Anybody who's watched the show knows that. Do you know how often I go back and watch old episodes? Never, because that shit is horrible. It is like not watchable as an adult under today's lens. I would love a grittier, darker, like more adult reboot. But again, you could love a thing and remember it and have it influence your life and be a big part of your childhood, but also be like, we can't just make that thing again. It has to adjust and change and become more modern. Like, it's seriously. Also, I love the Hulk parallel, which is something I didn't even think of, because the Hulk works best in the MCU as a supporting character.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, when I was a kid, the kind of things that were on when I was a kid were Sigmund and the Sea Monster, the original Land of the Lost. Those things are horrible and ridiculous. I still like them because I watched them when I was a kid. There's nothing good about them at all.
Yeah.
But so people have to kind of look at that objectively. One of the other complaints I heard people complain about this was that Tila had a shorter haircut and she had big arms. Here's the deal. The Olympics just got done. Did you see any of those athletic like rowers and shit like that? They have huge arms. That's because when you're strong, I mean, because no dudes look like He-Man either. Okay, this is
except for John Cena.
I mean, if you're
Except for John Cena, seriously.
yeah, I mean, yeah, except for that. And so, but
Make
what
that
I'm
fucking
saying
movie.
is, what I'm saying is, everybody says it doesn't look natural. That's what I kept hearing. Yeah, natural, because you know what? Superheroes and super crazy, super characters aren't normal. They're not real.
She fights with a sword for a living. For a living.
So if she's got big arms, not nearly as big as He-Man's arms, but she's got bigger arms than normal women. That's why, because she's a super badass character.
Right.
And if that bothers you, I don't know what to tell you.
Right. Maybe medieval fantasy
It's
shows
pretend.
are not for you.
It's fiction. If you want to see Tila the way you remember, just go look at the YouTube. She's still there. Okay?
Right.
Yeah, but
or go masturbate to your action figures.
I was going to say that. You took the words out of my mouth.
But that's the dumbest argument. Open any comic book. Superman's jacked AF. Like, none of them are depicted realistically. They're supposed to be over the top, ridiculous versions of superhero, of like whatever the fuck they want to be.
And to be honest, if Superman was from Krypton and he just came here as some regular kid or regular dude, and he wasn't bench pressing the earth every day, he would just have normal size arms. He would still be Superman. He could do all Superman type stuff. He just wouldn't be jacked. They do that to appeal to people,
right?
Because that's what people want to see.
It's a
the reality is
character.
He doesn't need that to be Superman. No. He's still going to be
His
strong.
muscles don't matter.
AF. Okay.
Also, you know what they should have done is they should have made like Fat Tila like Fat Thor, right? And then listen to everybody complain about that, right? It's like you can't make these people happy. Like you know what is she supposed to look like? You draw.
I bet they hated her haircut too. That this side was shaved.
The undercut. Yeah, totally.
All the changes. It's that. It's anything that back to anything that changed from what they remember when they were 7 years old.
Right.
And it's the thing you remember at 7 years old sucked. Let's just all agree what you saw at 7 years old sucked, and it's okay to remember it and enjoy it for what it was when you were 7.
And it made you feel a certain
it's
kind of
okay
way.
if you get a new story and things are different.
Yep.
Right.
So
absolutely, and absolutely true. Absolutely true. And I will say one thing. I loved that show. Okay, I am the guy that watched that show. Like, he's a little too young, he's a little too old. I was the guy. Like, I remember like 2 years in a row for Christmas, all I wanted was He-Man stuff. That's all. I didn't ask for anything else, just because I liked He-Man that much. I would watch that show every day when it was on. I remember like it would end and like the theme song would come on and I would get sad. Like, I would get really sad that it was over. Like, that's how much I like the show. And also I can realize that it's now 2021 and we're a very different world now. And what works then doesn't work now. Mm-hmm. And I really think like the flashbacks in the show, like that's what the show would be like if it was about the storyline that was about going on before. It would be that cheesy, that ridiculous, and like Skeletor would be tied up within 15 minutes every episode because that's how much more powerful than everyone else He-Man is. So yeah.
And you would like that for one episode.
Exactly. And it would be funny and it would have nostalgia value, and then you'd be like, all right, I'm not watching this anymore. Probably. Unless you have very poor taste.
And so here's my question. So Kevin Smith, Mark Bernardin, and the rest of the writing team, everyone who had anything to do with the show, they had to know changing anything people are going to flip out about, right? Like that had to be part of their conversation. So when they were coming up with this story, like if you guys were the ones in this writing room, would your train of thought be like, fuck it, if we want to make this a little bit more modern, a little bit more relevant, speak to like a modern day audience, you got to just go all out. Like you got to just do what they did, and you just got to not care what some of this big backlash is going to be. You got to tell the story that you think is worth telling. And like, they had to anticipate a lot of this, right? They had to know
absolutely
a part of the demographic was going to be pissed.
Yep. Well, there's a super easy, super safe way to do things, and then there's something where you try to do something different.
Oh,
The super easy, safe, simple, don't even have to think about it way is, hey, let's just make like He-Man like it used to. We'll try to make it a little less cheesy and put some killing in it.
Yep.
Super safe. Everybody that's a fan's going to enjoy it.
Right.
It's probably super safe. Most people will say it's okay. The part where you go, hey, let's try to do a little something different, that's the part where it's a little risky, but you're actually flexing your creativity and making something. Anytime you try to make something better, you're going to have to flex a little bit, and you're going to have to stretch, and you're going to have to use your imagination, and you're not going to hit it every time. Regardless of whether it's good or not, you may not hit it for certain people. Overall, you're not going to hit a grand slam every time, but nothing changes and gets better without people taking at least a little tiny bit of risk and creative license to try to make something better and a little bit different.
Absolutely agree.
And so here's the annoying thing, though. Like, in order for any IP to stay culturally relevant for that long, it will always have to change. Batman's not fucking dancing anymore, throwing pows and whips and all that kind of shit, right? That character changed.
Right. Go look at comic books from the 30s.
Yeah. It's
At
not
that
the same.
silly nonsense, and you tell me if you think if we just didn't change anything and kept most people aren't old enough to remember the comic books from the 30s. Go back and look at that stuff and tell me if you'd be reading anything Batman and or Robin or Superman if any of that nonsense was the same. No, they had to be different. They had to change. They had to get more interesting and grown up because not for little kids anymore.
Yeah. Look at Robin's short shorts and tell me you're okay with that. Would that be okay? The answer to that riddle is no. But the thing is, we're used to superheroes changing and evolving and constantly getting newer versions of them. He-Man hasn't been touched in however long it's been.
Yeah,
so that's why it's
40
precious.
years.
Yeah, so that's why it's precious to people. But it's like, dude, if you want your thing to be relevant, if you want more of it, it's gonna change. Like, period.
Right.
So I liked it. I say watch it as like a somewhat casual fan. Do you say watch it? Do you recommend it?
Yeah, I mean, I liked it too. For me, I'm just like so not involved with He-Man at all that I was. Even though I thought the story was okay, if I was even a little bit of a He-Man fan, I would have been way more involved and interested in it. I didn't think it was bad. I thought the animation was cool. I agreed with everything about the animation.
Yeah.
It was, a lot of this stuff, whether it's the Transformers or anything like that, it helps to have some nostalgia
Very much.
involved.
Yes.
Because anything like that brings you in more. If you're like just coming in cold. I mean, I knew who He-Man was and probably never even watched a show. And so it helps to have at least a little bit of that to help bring you in, because when you recognize the characters, I probably knew who about 4 or 5 characters on that even were, and then the rest of the characters, I'm like, who's this guy? Who's this guy? Who's this guy? So if I knew who the characters were, I would have been a little more invested too. So I thought it was fine. I thought it was interesting. I thought it was a good enough show, but I hope that if you're a fan, that helps you to want to watch it. And if you're a fan and you haven't watched this, you complain about it, watch it. Cause like I said, you lose your opportunity to complain if you're not even going to watch it.
Absolutely.
And so for me, if there's not a season 2, like, I'm not going to be sad.
They already made it.
Did they already make it? Okay.
Yeah, they put it out.
My point was going to be, like, I'm not sad if there's not a season 2, but I will watch a season 2. So that's kind of where I am. Like, I liked it, but again, like, the fandom for me is not quite there. But H. Dresden, I'm assuming you're all in with this?
I definitely think it's worth watching. I think that if you are not in the sweet spot, just go in and appreciate it as whether you think it's any good or not, and then just make your own opinion and enjoy it or not based on whether you think it's any good. Which, I mean, that's my main thing I always say is, like, just make good movies, right? Whatever you're going to make, just make it good. And I do think that they did a good job with this. I do think that if you're in my age range, probably like 37 to 45, probably you're going to need to go in and just take that one section of your nostalgia and how does it make you feel the way way the show used to make you feel, and just have that be one part of your opinion about the show, and then evaluate everything else on its own merits. And I think you'll enjoy it more. I do want to say one other thing too about it, because we didn't talk about any of the characters or anything. And what Weapon 2 over here was talking about, how he didn't really know any of the characters, because I was in that sweet spot. Like, I knew I'm like, oh, it's Beastman. It's just like,
yeah. So how was that then? How did they do?
I loved it. Like, I loved it. Like, first of all, put Henry Rollins as anybody, and I'm gonna love it, right? And to make him as Triclops, okay, and then to make to explore this, like, okay, Skeletor's gone. We think he's dead. There's a power vacuum, and what happens when you have a power vacuum? Things devolve, right? Things devolve, and that's what happened. I really like that element of the show a lot, and Henry Rollins just killed that character. Like, he just absolutely destroyed it. So I loved that. I really, really liked that. You know, you got to see, because Skeletor, I mean, he chews on the scenery in every show that he's in, right? I mean, that's what he does. That's his job. He's a big crazy guy, takes up a lot of space. He's got his right. We all love him, but taking him out, just like taking He-Man out, gives us room to explore these other characters, which are actually pretty cool and pretty interesting. Like, you know, Beastman's loyalty to Evelyn was so cool. Like, I thought that was really, really neat, and like the Triclops cult thing was just super cool. And so I really like those elements of it. So if you do like the lore, and you can suspend the fact that, hey, this isn't really about He-Man, I think you're really gonna like it. I recommend watching it.
To touch on that point real quick, so I recognized a lot of characters, and even if I recognize them, like, I might not remember them that much, but like, I know, like, Tila's a good example. Like, I know I knew her kind of, but like, I can't remember anything she fucking did.
Right.
But a lot of the other characters I did recognize and did get excited. And holy shit, the voice acting performances were great. Like, all of a sudden, like, Kevin Conroy is like fucking Merman, or who the fuck that was. Like, whatever his name is.
I can't think of it either.
Get
right
out of here. Lena Headey was amazing.
I really liked her too.
And again, he's not in it that much, but when Mark Hamill is just Skeletor's the shit out of it, and he's kind of just the Joker, but whatever, like, it works because he was that crazy, over the top, ridiculous,
absolutely,
let this be our final battle, like, all that. It worked for what they were doing,
absolutely.
And one thing that my big takeaway, especially like as we kept progressing through like episodes 2, 3, all that, I was just like, wow, there's a lot of lore here. Like, there's so much shit that just, I don't know if I didn't remember or if it just didn't really go in depth with in the old show, but I was just like, there's a lot of shit going on. Like, there's a lot of things they're talking about. There's a lot of like world building things that they're explaining. I'm just like, there's a lot here. Like, holy shit.
Definitely.
I mean, and also as a casual observer, one thing that I thought was interesting, you can tell me whether I'm right or wrong about this, I don't know. I feel like the old shows were just good guys against bad guys. Was that, am I right or wrong about that?
Absolutely, 100. Like, black and white.
As a casual observer, I like the way when when He-Man and Skeletor are now gone and we've lost magic and the whole world is in jeopardy. The bad people team up with the good people, and they kind of become friends and depend on each other and become a team up until they get done dirty at the end again. But up until then, and they're like, "Yeah, sorry, you know." It's
I was just starting to like you, kids.
Yeah, but the whole time before that, I actually, that was one of my favorite parts about the whole thing, was that they were teaming up and overcoming their differences and their loyalties and trying to work towards a goal together. So.
Which is, again, I mean, that's, I think, a function of, number one, when that show came out, right? It came out in the 80s, right? So it's still got a very sort of, the writers still have a very sort of Cold War sensibility, right?
Black
there are
and
good
white,
guys, there are
bad.
bad guys, right? And that doesn't fly anymore. I mean, anti-heroes are the thing now, right? I mean, like, we like Wolverine now. We don't really, like, Superman is almost like we don't know what to do with him anymore. But we like Wolverine a lot now. And so that they had to do that, I think. Right. You know, they had to do that.
And you guys are right. Like, I love a good uneasy hero-villain alliance for a mutual goal. It leans to so many good conversations and dialogue and what can be great character moments, so like we saw on the show. So
absolutely,
yeah, give it a chance. Just give it a chance, man. Check it out.
Yeah.
But
and if you're one of the people that's like a fanboy and really mad about everything, die mad, you salty bitch.
I mean, but
first subscribe and then die mad.
The only reason you shouldn't watch this is if you're absolutely indifferent to it. If you're a mad He-Man fan that feel like you got done dirty, but you haven't even watched it and you don't even know what people are talking about, watch it. If you're totally attached to it and you want to enjoy a new thing, watch it. I think you should watch it both ways. If you're completely indifferent and you just don't like animated stuff or care, then you probably shouldn't watch it.
What? If you watch this and it just doesn't work for you, if it's just not your, that's fine too.
Completely
you
okay.
can just not like it, but don't go into it with an assigned hatred and die on that hill without giving it like a subjective chance.
Right, and that's kind of what I was trying to say before. I think you just said it better though. Is like, evaluate your nostalgia for it as just one dimension of the overall experience. Don't let that sour you to everything, because there is good stuff there, I think, personally. And if you genuinely disagree with the fact that stuff that I think is good, then that's cool. But don't let the fact that it's not exactly what you expected sour you on the stuff which I do think is good, if that makes sense.
I think it makes perfect sense.
Excellent.
Nice work.
All right. So yeah, I think to sum this up, just watch the damn show.
Yes.
Formulate your own opinion.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, let's move on. We're not going to talk too in depth about this, but Titans Season 3 has dropped on the DC universes. Now, Weapon 2 is completely caught up. I've seen the first episode and part of the second episode of Season 3. H. Dresden has steered away from this show for a long time. I think on purpose a little bit.
No,
not on purpose.
Just a blind spot. Like just a blind spot.
Fair enough. But you just got into it, and how far along are you, and what are your initial impressions?
I am I think either about halfway or maybe 2/3 of the way through the first season, and I'm very, very impressed with the show. I did not think it would be very good, and that's based for a lot of reasons, like on my experience with DC in general and their live action stuff. I have not been impressed at all, and like I mentioned that with Suicide Squad, it's probably a me thing. I need to loosen up a little bit and relax. But after watching this show, I'm a long way towards that, because I really do feel like it's well acted. They do another kind of the same thing we're talking about. Like there's a well-established canon here that we all know and love. We love these characters, and this is them exploring sort of the spots around that canon that don't really get fleshed out. And it's very well done. I think it's just about as good, if not as good, as the Netflix MCU stuff. So I really think it's very good.
Yeah, especially at the point you're at. So the thing I remember vividly enjoying right off the bat from that first season, and like this never goes away. Like there are big issues that I have with season 1 and 2, and we'll talk about them as you get there.
Yeah.
But what I loved in this is you're right. So it's not about Superman or Batman or Wonder. It's not about any of them. They are mentioned. They're talked about.
Right.
But we're seeing the characters that are in their orbit, and we're seeing the ones that interact with them, but are still here. And more than anything else, more than the Arrowverse ever did, this felt like the DC universe to me.
Agreed.
It felt like these were characters that were in this world that I know and love. The Easter eggs, like even seeing, I don't know if you've seen it yet, but it's like Dick, he's scrolling through his phone and you're just like looking at his contact.
All the contacts.
You're like pausing, like, who the fuck is this? Who's this?
Absolutely.
Like, little things like that, little moments that are mentioned, and also like, because there's so much history in the DC universe, trying to gauge like what time period, like where are we, what's happened, what hasn't happened, like all this stuff. That's so freaking fun for me.
Yeah.
And it nails that. It feels like a real lived universe. You know what I mean?
Completely
That's
agree.
what I think it got right. And the tone, like it's really fucking dark, and that's what DC stuff should be, especially something centered around Gotham.
Absolutely. And like, I mean, the idea that like it explores, like, obviously the comics have done this too, but like what happens to you when you grow up like as Bruce Wayne's Ward, running around in the alleys and beating people up?
Spoilers,
like,
you're not mentally healthy.
Yeah, you're not normal. Like you're not, like your parents die, and then you get swooped up by some crazy dark like guy, and then like you're gonna go fight at 11 because you can do backflips. Like, I mean, come on, you're gonna be messed up.
And you're like, that's such an insane concept.
I know, it's ridiculous.
That we're all fine with somehow, right? Like
exactly.
no one's questioning that shit, He-Man fans. Sorry. We're past that. Okay, yeah, no one questioned. But you're right. So now you're, 20, however old Dick Grayson is in this, which by the way, so Dick Grayson's one of my favorite characters.
That casting.
I love Nightwing.
No, he's got to be mid-20s pushing 30.
Yeah, because he's got, okay, so he's older. He's way older, yeah.
He's like a detective on the San Francisco police force.
Yeah, he's much older.
Stuff,
but great Dick Grayson. And the thing that I like about this is, so Dick Grayson is, especially once he's Nightwing, he's a lot funnier, he's a lot quippier, he's but I like this moment where we meet Dick Grayson in that he's just pissed off. He's angry. He's like losing himself because he's so fucking angry at Batman because of because of how he was raised. And you're like, yeah, dude, you got some points there.
And he doesn't want to be Robin anymore, but he can't stop carrying the case around with him everywhere. It's interesting. It's really interesting.
And that just gets, like, they really dive like, that storyline keeps going through season 2. And there's really good things that happen that I'm curious about your point of view. And other characters get introduced that are kind of my favorites. So at this point, you've met Hawk and Dove already. Their episode and their backstory
was amazing.
Really good.
Yeah,
like,
so
holy
good.
crap, good. And how they bonded over trauma. And how well, that's not healthy. That's not going to work out long term. But like, that's going to feel like the most real thing you're ever going to have in the moment.
Definitely.
It's just done so good.
Yeah, really, really well done. And I love the way they have Raven. Like, she's just fantastic. Like, I like Teen Titans in general. I've always liked that show. I even like the cartoon. So, I mean, I really like she nails it for me.
Focusing
She's perfect.
the story, especially the season 1 story around
On
her,
her, yeah.
was a good thing to do.
Agreed. Completely. Super interesting. Very well done.
Now, again, I can't emphasize enough. I do have some massive fucking issues with this show moving forward past where he is. And again, I don't want to spoil too much, though. But Weapon 2, what you agree kind of like with the initial...
Yes. So what I really liked about Titans was that I'm not going to put down the CW and the whole Berlanti universe or whatever, Arrowverse, whatever you want to call it.
Hang on, real quick. Somewhere T. Crowler just went. Someone's talking shit. Yeah. Does he work here anymore? Oh.
You tell me. So I liked that, and I watched some of the CW programs. I've probably never watched any of them all the way through, or a whole bunch of any of them. I enjoy them. I don't think they're bad. To me, the thing that Titans does better is that they introduce violence and a little bit of grittiness to things. So to me, that just makes it more interesting to me. I liked all that. Raven was a really good character. I'll tell you, I miss the show when she's not in there.
Yeah.
And so for me, I really like that. As far as, without doing any spoilers for season 3, there are 2 deaths that are interesting in there in the first 3 episodes, and that are key to things. The one thing that I don't think that this is a spoiler at all involving Batman is I am not a fan of 100% good guys, 100% bad guys, 100% anything. So the fact that Chuck Norris Batman always can do everything, he can always be the best, he can always this and that, to me that's boring.
So
how's that hitting you there?
The thing I liked about
Batman's the biggest Mary Sue in the world, but everybody gave Ray shit. No, it's fine. It's fine.
Give what?
Ray for being a Mary Sue in Star Wars. Oh, she could do everything perfectly. I was like, have you read any Batman comics, bro? Like, seriously.
Right, but I'm just saying, everybody, Batman, you know as well as I do that the go-to with DC fans is Batman, given enough time and preparation. He's always got a plan for everything. Yeah. He's got everything handled all the time, 100%. The fact that in season 3, in the first 3 episodes, at least, Batman does not have a handle on everything. He's coming apart at the seams. Yeah. He's showing a whole bunch of frailty. To me, that's super interesting. This is the most interested I've been in Batman, and I don't know how long. And he doesn't play a big part, but the point that he's shown that he's fucked up in, I need help and I don't have everything under control. I like that.
So I agree with that. I just hate the casting for Bruce Wayne. I fucking hate it. I can't get past it.
If we're gonna go with old Batman,
but like fucking super old, like he is Dark Knight Returns old.
Can I explain something to you?
He looks like he needs to be fucking when he's like, I'm
Captain
leaving.
Mal?
Where's your walker, bro?
Captain Mal.
Are you okay? Where's your
Captain Mal?
So
can I give you?
Yes.
Can I give you a little bit of reality?
No, that's fine. He would. I get it.
Batman. We can always pretend like Batman, who's a normal human being without any superpowers or alien influence, doesn't get old.
No, sure.
But a person that just has fighting skills and a big bank account would get old. So there's still plenty of room for young, fit, active Batman portrayals. But the reality is, if we want to face the reality that people get old, I think there's a room for a portrayal of him as old, and not some young, super fighting, active, got everything under control, but a guy who doesn't really. So
And I don't disagree with that. And I think there are, especially in some Batman stories, even this story, yes, we do need an older version of Batman. It's not going to be 30-year-old Batman. I get that. But also, Batman at 60 is still built like a brick shit house.
how can Batman be the same age as
I'm not saying he should be the same age. I'm saying he should be older. I'm on board with that.
Right.
But I'm saying the actor that they picked, who's a great actor, and I like him in other things, he doesn't, to me, carry himself. He doesn't have the physicality. He looks like an old man, and that's my problem. Because even at 60, you should look at Batman, and he should be like, "That's nobody I want to get into a fight with." And you look at this dude, and you're just like, he's just an old dude. Like he doesn't.
Nobody that anybody wants to get in a fight with, or somebody that the other 60-year-olds don't want to get into a fight with.
Well, you want to fight everybody's grandpa, so this is a different story.
Which is still true.
Shut it up!
But I mean, so let's break it down for a second, right? So I haven't seen the casting. I don't even know who the actor is, so I can't say. But from what you're saying, he looks pretty old.
Well, he doesn't want to know. But do you want to know? I can tell.
I can tell me who the actor is. That's fine.
It's fucking Sir Friendzone. It's Ian Glenn, Jorah Mormont.
Oh, okay.
Good actor,
Sure.
but
But okay, so let's say, how old was Batman when he adopted Robin? Let's say he's 35, so he should be 55 now, maybe, or no, 65 now.
right.
So at 65, he's going to be still pretty. I mean, like Batman Beyond, he was way older than that.
He was like 80,
and
almost,
he's still.
yeah.
I mean, he was still whooping guys' asses with his cane. You know what I mean? So he's a serious looking dude, no matter when.
That's my point. Is I'm saying he shouldn't. I get he's not going to be 30,
right?
But Ian Glenn, just in a suit or whatever, and just in like a button-up and stuff, he just looks like an old man.
I got you.
He's not jacked or anything, and that's part of the psychology of Batman. That's part of what makes him fucking insane. Is that he never lets himself not be at that peak physical level,
right?
And his genetics are just that anyway. He's as close to peak human as you would get just naturally, right?
Yeah, without super soldier serum.
And so, like, you look at someone like Hawk, who's built like what a superhero would look like, and then you look at him talking to Bruce Wayne, and it's like, I don't buy for a second that Bruce Wayne would whip your ass, and he's supposed to be able to.
Right.
And this is just me, like, not letting go of what my vision of him is in the comics, and I'm aware of that. And Ian Glenn does a fine job, especially in like that first episode of season 3. He does what you were talking about, him unraveling. He's a great actor, and he plays the part well. That's a little. It's a nitpick though, because the show, other than that, with him is fine. It's fine. There's other problems that we'll talk about later.
So there's some things that I liked about it that he didn't like about
And
it.
that's
So
fine.
see, that's going to be different for people.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Oh, and check it out. This is weird. We're still friends. Like, we don't hate each other.
Yeah.
We're not like torching each other's Facebook down.
Exactly.
It's weird. Oh, God, we could agree to disagree. It's
It's great
God.
that we don't like everything exactly the same.
Yeah, because if
And
we were
still
just like,
each other.
do you agree? Yeah. Do you agree? Yeah, I agree too. This would be a boring freaking podcast.
Right.
It's true.
So, all right, that was cool. Anything else you guys have been up to or watched that you want to throw out there real quick that you want to like recommend or not recommend or?
What ifs? I don't know how many what ifs people have seen.
I've seen the first one. You've seen none?
I've seen none.
All right.
So I've seen both of them because the last one came out at midnight last night. So I woke up at 12:30 and I watched it.
It's commitment.
And
Right?
I since it's out, I don't think that it's a spoiler just to say what it's about.
What's it about?
It is about T'Challa becoming the Star-Lord.
That's dope. This is Chadwick
So-
Boseman's last role, isn't it?
What?
Chadwick Boseman, it's his last role, isn't it?
It sounds like him. So if he voiced it, it sure sounded like him. I thought they just found somebody who sounded a lot like him.
Fair enough.
But it sure sounded like him. It wouldn't throw me off this because they don't have all the same actors come back and voice every single character. But
Confirmed, it is Chadwick Boseman.
yeah, so that's
Nice.
so that'll get you in the feels, I guess, a little bit.
Oh, man.
But it was. So yeah, basically, instead of them coming out and getting Peter Quill when he was a kid, they got T'Challa.
Interesting.
And it's the different take is instead of him being the laughing stock, everybody has a lot of respect for him and everything. and,
Poor Star-Lord.
and Thanos is an awesome, likable buddy in this entire thing.
I saw an article being that he was a good guy and people were pissed
He's
off.
like just everybody's best friend. He's like the most awesome guy because T'Challa could talk him out of deciding to get rid of half the universe.
That's fair.
And he still thinks it would be a great idea, but he's okay with it.
Well, and here's the thing that bugs me. So, like, I saw an article that was like, people are mad that he's a good guy. And I was like, do you not understand the point of this show? It's supposed to be different.
People need to stop
God.
complaining about things. not being. This is a complete alternate reality.
This is the point of the show.
Forget anything you know and how it interacts or it ties to anything. It's what if this entire opposite thing happened and everything's different. If you can't get that around, wrap your head around
You're
this,
the reason we can't have nice
you're
things.
not going to enjoy it because it's for people to go, I'm going to forget everything. I want to remember what I know so I can enjoy the absurdity of this completely different version of events. And so if that's getting to you, don't watch any more of them, because that's what this entire series is about. We're going to turn this thing on its head, and we're going to do a complete different story. So if you can't stop connecting it to other stuff, then just give up. It's not for you. But for people who do enjoy this type of stuff, like me, I love the What If comic books when I was a kid. I'm enjoying this. I wish they were a little bit longer.
Yeah, they are pretty short.
30 minutes seems a little bit short for what they're trying to do, because what they're really trying to do is kind of revamp almost an entire movie into 30 minutes. So it gets kind of packed.
Yeah. Which this was my, not issue, but this is the one thing I did say about the first episode, which is what if Peggy Carter took the super soldier serum?
Yeah.
So you're basically retelling the entire story of the first Captain America movie under the guise of her now becoming the super soldier, and you do a good job. But that fucking thing moves like it is like point to point to point to point to point.
And the second one's kind of that way too.
Yeah, and I feel like if you're only gonna have a half hour, 24 minutes, because they have a lot of credits, then it's gonna be quick pace.
I think if you added like 15 minutes to every episode, it would help with a little bit with that stuff. Not that it's bad. I mean, if you're wanting to see action, well then it's perfect. But I think that it just. And I think they do a pretty good job of trying to put that entire storyline into 30 minutes. I still just think it's a little bit short.
At least 10 minutes would really help. But I mean, it's there for at least the first episode was still really, really good. There's
a big cameo of Howard the Duck in this one too. So
nice.
If you're a Howard the Duck fan, you'll get to see more than you expected of Howard the Duck.
So H. Dresden, you haven't seen these yet, but what do you think about the concept of What If, and will you check these out?
I will check them out, definitely. I like it a lot. I like that idea a lot. I'm not against that at all. Like just taking kind of like I mean Marvel's done it for years, right? With the Ultimate Universe and everything. Like I mean it's a big thing. I like it. I think it's a great idea.
Nice. I did see, as I was scrolling around Facebook, one of the original What If comic books was What If Wolverine killed the Hulk in their initial encounter.
I saw that one too.
I'm like, holy shit, can we make that one? Because I want to see that.
Do you think that Weapon 2 might have posted that on the Facebook
Oh my God,
page
was it you?
of the world's greatest news and reviews? Do you think that's where you saw that?
It would make sense if that's where we both...
Because I did.
I never look at the shit.
Post it there.
I only look at
I did post it there last night or yesterday.
I only look at that stuff once H. Dresden forwards them to me.
I see.
Via
Okay,
text
so
message.
maybe that's where you saw that.
Yeah. Awesome.
I've been distracted the last couple of days. It's fine. Sweet. Okay. Well, yeah. So What If's great. Anything else? H. Dresden, have you checked out anything else that you want to touch on real quick?
Well, I am rereading the Dark Tower series right now by Stephen King.
And you hated that movie, though, right?
Well, and that's kind of why I want to talk about it, because we've talked about adaptations of things all day today, which is kind of fun. I really like the books a lot. Obviously, they're some of my favorite books. Roland of Gilead is one of my favorite characters in anything ever, for any in any context. Love him the most. And that movie was just horrible, despite the fact that it had an awesome main actor. I think he would have been a great Roland. But obviously, it was about the studio not supporting it and all that sort of stuff. So I want to sort of clarify that, me not liking the Dark Tower movie wasn't because it didn't fill up my expectations of like how the Dark Tower should go. It just almost wasn't related at all to the Dark Tower that I know and love. Like it wasn't even related. Didn't follow any of the same rules. The canon was all different. It was just it was almost like if you're a Stephen King fan, Desperation and the Regulators, except not good. It's like a completely different telling of a similar sort of thing in a way that's not at all good. So yeah, but I love those books, and if you haven't read them, you should, because they're amazing.
Nice.
Yeah, that's all.
So I actually, part of the reason I didn't get to finish catching up on Titans is after watching Masters of the Universe, I needed kind of a palate cleanser. And there's a show on Netflix called I Am Not Okay With This. And it came out last year, and I saw the trailer for it, and it looked interesting. I just never gave it a shot. So I kind of just threw it on for something to have on in the background and just to kind of like watch the first half-hour episode. And then I binged the entire season last night. And really, 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 really good. The premise, real quick, if you've never heard of it before, is it follows this teenage girl in some like really shit part of the middle of the country. No offense if you're from there, move though. And so like her life's not good. Her dad committed suicide like a year ago, something along those lines. They're super poor. She goes to high school. She's like kind of the classic, like feels like a freak, feels like she can't relate to anybody, has like one friend, like that kind of thing, right? Mm-hmm. And so despite that she's dealing with like all the trauma of her dad dying, because it's also one of those things where like no one's allowed to talk about it in her house, her mom being distant because she's working, you know, 2 jobs in order to support the family, her having to help raise her brother, her feeling like a social outcast and all that, every now and then she'll like start to lose it and freak out, and then all of a sudden like things randomly explode behind her, or the wall will crack, or like she'll chuck a box across the room, and she's just like, okay, well, you know how I know I'm going crazy? Because I think I did that with my mind. And then little by little, you're like, oh shit, she's doing that with her mind. So then all of a sudden, it's like the story of her getting these weird ass superpowers that she has no idea where they're coming from, questioning her own sanity as she's going through it. And then little by little, she realizes that there's a much bigger plot here. There's obviously a connection with her dad and why he committed suicide, and so all this. Anyway, so like talking about like the X-Men or things like that, connecting their powers to adolescence and puberty, and that point in your life when you feel like you are an outcast, when you feel the most different that you're ever going to feel. And now you're changing and all these things are happening, and now there's this actual fucking thing happening that is scary and terrifying. You don't understand, you can't control it. It's a good allegory just in general. This does that also. And it's really good, and you immediately care about the main character, you care about the people around her, and it just progresses and progresses and progresses, and it never gets over the top superhero. There's never like a big superhero showdown or whatever. It's just her dealing with this and trying to figure it the fuck out. Really engaging, and the episodes are only like 23 minutes each, and there's...
So like standard half-hour show, yeah.
Yeah, and there's like 7 of them, so you could... It's essentially just a long movie if you do it in one sitting.
That's awesome.
Really good. So it's called... I Am Not Okay With This. Like, legit, check it out. It's really good. I hope they make a second season. So, yeah.
Sweet.
I think I started watching that one time, too. I think it was good. I think I enjoyed it. I can't remember when I stopped watching it. Probably because I had too many other things I was supposed to be watching.
That juggling all the stuff we need to watch is difficult sometimes.
I will tell you something that me and Hailstorm just got done binging in the last few days. And I feel like there's some other stuff I watched that I was trying to look at my phone right now to see if I could remember what it was. But what we just got done watching is a show called The Get Down. Ooh. On, I believe it is Netflix, but it could be HBO Max. But it is about old school hip hop when it was just being created in the 70s. So it's a fictional story involving a whole bunch of real life characters that we know from the genesis of hip hop. It's just this crew of kids who are inventing the whole 2 turntables with the little freaking switching back, creating beats from records, and learning how to turn their rhymes into raps. And it's pretty super interesting, super cool. It's also just a cool story because they have a whole bunch of characters involved. There's a lot of other stuff going on, like gangster stuff and real love story stuff and real life interacting with other character stuff.
Sounds up your alley.
But it is
definitely.
It is super interesting. It's super fun to watch them doing their performances and stuff because they're just a bunch of young kids, and it's good. If you like anything about especially old school hip hop in the beginning, you'll really enjoy it.
Nice. So, yeah. That sounds awesome.
I'm gonna watch that
down.
for sure.
Yeah,
that sounds awesome.
All right, Weapon 2, plug some social medias.
Alrighty, so we have our Instagram, where we're still somewhere in like the 1600s of subscribers. I'm still sometimes I don't get a meme put up every day, but I try to put one up every day. Try to keep them relevant to shows and or movies that are coming out right now for your entertainment. We have that. We still have our website, which is theworldsgreatest.net. We have our Facebook page, which is the World's Greatest News and Reviews on Facebook, where we put all kinds of other stuff, not necessarily original stuff, but stuff we see on the internet and stuff we think is funny and interesting.
News and trailers,
all
like
that stuff that's interesting. We put that up there. That's about what's going on the social. So is there anything I missed? Is there anything I missed, Captain Mel?
Fucking nailed it.
All right. We also have been for some time, people, if you're out there,
let me give you free stuff.
Listen to us. We want to give you free things. These are things that cost you nothing. These things will cost you a mere push of your finger on a computerized button on a screen. And I mean, what we're going to give you is when we get to 300, which we've been trying to do for quite some time, is get to 300 subscribers on our YouTube. What we want to do is we're going to give you a box. That box is going to contain a logo t-shirt for the world's greatest news and reviews of 4 available logos. This is one of them. We're going to throw in a pop from our local Everett Funko Pop.
Yeah, buddy.
You're going to tell us what kind of characters you like, and if we can find a pop that's somewhere similar to that, that's what we're going to put in there. I'm also going to do an original drawing for you of your character that you like. It's drawn by me. It'll be original for you. We're also going to throw in some comic books. If you tell us about that character, we'll see if we can find some about that character. We'll throw that in there. We'll throw in some other things that we can find, little doodads, trinkets, toys, whatnot in there. All you have to do is you go to YouTube, you subscribe, become a subscriber for the world's greatest news and reviews. Comment on our most recent podcast with your name so we know who you are. So if we choose you, which we will choose somebody at random at 300 subscribers, we can contact you and say, hey, what size shirt do you wear? What's your favorite character? Things like that. And what address should we mail this stuff to? And then we're going to do all that. What we'd like you to do in addition, if you don't mind, is share the giveaway with other people so they could also subscribe and become eligible for the giveaway. Every single person who's ever subscribed from the very beginning is in the running for every single giveaway. Not getaway. I mean, it's not like we're going to send you plane tickets.
Free stuff, though.
It's true.
Saved it.
Yeah, and I try to post every once in a while the directions and instructions for the giveaway and whatnot. Did I miss anything, Captain Mel?
Weapon 2, that was fantastic.
Oh, hey, thanks.
It's almost like you do this semi-professionally.
I've done it a lot of times. I've gone through it a lot of times, so I think I remember it all.
You got it.
Thanks. Hey, I wanted to say that I appreciate Captain Mal. You know, Captain Mal does all of the editing and the preparation for all of our YouTube videos and our podcast audio platforms and posts all that. So he does all that, and he doesn't get thanks enough for all that he does. So that's what I wanted to say.
Well, thank you, Weapon 2. I appreciate that. And I appreciate you and all the work you do on the social medias. Real talk, sometimes when I'm not caught up on, of the new Marvel shows that's come out or whatever, I can't look at our Instagram because you're so on it with the damn memes and all that. And I saw, even with the Suicide Squad, I saw some memes that I didn't understand until I watched the movie, and I was like, God,
that's right.
That's why he waits for me to send him memes, because he knows that he won't do it.
Exactly. I know you wait till I've seen it, probably.
Exactly.
Well, H. Dresden, thank you very much for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure having you again. Hope you had fun and you had a good time. I know I did. I can only speak for myself.
I had a blast. This has been great.
Awesome. You are welcome back whenever you want. We'll just make Lonnie not come.
We don't have to make Lonnie not come. He just doesn't do that on his own.
That's true.
Yeah.
But even if he's here, the 4 of us could do it. It'll be great. But yes, you're welcome back whenever you want. Any closing thoughts, anybody?
That's it. This is fun. We did it. We did it, fellas. We did it again. You know, every time we got a podcast coming, I'm going, are we going to be able to do it? I don't know. And we always do it. So congratulations, everybody. Success. We did it.
H. Dresden.
God damn it. We did it. Pat yourselves on the back.
So again, you say your superpower is bringing content to people about various superhero things. That's your superpower. Also, watching lots of things on television is your superpower. Also, digging holes. I'm looking at this hole outside.
Seriously, that's a superpower.
Look, seriously, that is a damn superpower.
Insane.
That Weapon 2 has.
Probably 10,000 gallons of water. He can be out there.
He can dig holes.
Is that a for real number?
I believe that's about how big. It's big.
That's a big hole.
Awesome.
You know what we're going to do whenever I get this done? We'll put a little video.
I was gonna say we should do something
of my koi-filled pond in my backyard.
And by koi, he means piranha. And by video, he means us putting someone in there.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Awesome, guys. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the world's greatest news and reviews. If you've enjoyed, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications.
Peace.
Untitled.